Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Bruce Frisco. Todd Battis is off this week. It's Wednesday, the 25th day of March. This is CTV News. Tonight, rate shock. Hike is approved. Nova Scotians will pay more for power. Catch and kill. New orders for anglers to battle invasive fish.
While snow quickly turns to rain for most of the Maritimes tomorrow, it could collect in a few spots, and more on that coming up.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Bruce Frisco.
Good evening. We begin tonight with an increasingly dramatic budget battle, which continues to play out at the Nova Scotia Legislature. As the PC government tries to push the spending plan forward, they have been met with resistance both outside and inside the House. In fact, an unusual incident last night has prompted higher security and a temporary public ban from what is known as the People's House. CTV's Jesse Thomas has more.
The PC government is one step closer to passing the budget the Appropriations Act passed today, after the voting process was disrupted late last night by protesters in the gallery. It was near midnight when protesters broke into song. The chorus of nearly 20 in the gallery didn't stop, forcing the House Speaker to call security and legislative police to clear the gallery before suspending government business. Outside the legislature, security and the Speaker said a group was blocking MLAs from leaving the Province House.
What I would say is we all have a tolerance. I would say that this is a hard job, and I would say that this should be a safe space for everyone who works here.
Police were called and arrested a man for mischief. He was later released without any charges, but it prompted the Speaker to close the gates and ban the public until further notice.
It's a hard juggle, and unfortunately, there was a few that ruined it for the rest.
Much of the protest has been over the more than $300 million in cuts to the budget, including $104 million in cuts to grants and social programming. The public pressure forced the Houston government to pivot and reinstate $53.6 million in spending, mainly for vulnerable populations like seniors and those living with disabilities. Chender called the protest song a last-ditch effort by the public to make their voices heard.
I don't think that budgets should be forced for a vote at midnight without the Premier in the chamber. I don't condone that.
Premier Tim Houston is in Texas attending an energy conference, but he wasn't the only high-ranking member of the PC party to miss voting on the budget. The finance minister wasn't there either.
I was in a meeting, and I will make sure I'm there at every future vote.
While MLAs cast their vote over the province's fiscal plan, there was another small group protesting outside the legislature. Inside, the debate continues. Jesse Thomas, CTV News, Halifax.
It is the last thing Nova Scotians wanted to hear, but they will be paying more for power in the future. The Nova Scotia Energy Board has agreed Nova Scotia Power needs a rate hike, although the exact rate has not yet been released. The board, though, says it is close to the 8.1% the utility was asking for. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness has details and reaction tonight.
Nova Scotia Power's arguments for an 8.1% hike in rates were mostly effective. While not getting all they wanted, the Nova Scotia Energy Board ruled today that the utility must recalculate and come back with a number that is slightly less than what they were asking.
I think it's atrocious. I live on a teacher's pension. It's fixed. It's not indexed. It's the same now as it was in 2012.
The new figure will include adjustments made from the board's order to make $8 million in reductions to operating, maintenance, and general expenses, reduce executive compensation in 2026 and 2027, and reduce fuel and purchased power costs by $1.8 million.
We've heard the Premier say time and time again, I wish this company cared. I wish they would be more caring. That's his job.
Just like the finances, the Premier has lost control of power rate increases in the province. So
NSP made the application last fall for the rate increase to cover 2026 and 2027, insisting it needed to strengthen the grid, enhance tree trimming, and improve its response to weather events. Premier Tim Houston reacted in a statement, saying in part, I expected more from the board, particularly after such an extensive hearing where expert after expert presented clear evidence on why the board should exercise its authority and reject Nova Scotia Power's request. On a day when 20,000 people in Pictou County lost power due to what the utility calls a transmission interruption, NSP's response to the board's ruling reads, as we've seen this winter, continued investments in the electricity grid are critical, both in terms of reliability of our system during storms and the supply of electricity during extreme cold snaps.
So I've gone through life, for much of my life, not experiencing any power outages where I've lived. And then since it was privatized, I've seen a lot of power outages. So I'm just trying to draw a connection between their job and maintaining infrastructure and what they're asking us to pay.
Nova Scotia's consumer advocate has signed off on the rate hikes. And Bruce, as for when we will know what the new rates are, Nova Scotia Power is expected to submit their new rate request following the adjustments within the next couple of weeks. Bruce.
Okay, well, thank you, John. CTV's Jonathan McGinnis reporting for us tonight from Halifax. A man wanted in connection with a homicide in Edmonton has been arrested by police in Charlottetown. You can read more on that story on our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. To Fredericton now, where the company that's supposed to take over virtual healthcare services in New Brunswick is dealing with its own financial difficulties. That's according to U.S. credit agency. Meantime, as CTV's Nick Moore tells us tonight, the official opposition says the New Brunswick government is taking a real risk by moving from a New Brunswick-based provider.
The Luxembourg-based Foundever Group is expected to take over virtual primary health care in New Brunswick. During question period today, the official opposition referenced a December report from the U.S. credit rating agency S&P Global, which downgraded the company to a CCC rating. The S&P Global report said the company had a negative outlook. Foundever did not respond to our request for comment today.
Will the Premier tell the people of New Brunswick when she learned that Foundever was downgraded by S&P to what they call currently vulnerable and reliant on favorable conditions?
We have a smooth transition plan. New Brunswickers need not be afraid. They will have virtual care.
Last month, the province announced it was leaving the New Brunswick-based eVisit NB care provider at the end of March. That virtual care model was created just before the pandemic to keep people out of emergency departments if they were looking for a referral or prescription. Last week, Premier Susan Holt confirmed the timeline for ending eVisit NB had moved.
There was a transition clause in the contract with eVisit to provide 90 days of transition time if and when we're moving to different service providers.
Yesterday, Health Minister Dr. John Dornan said there was still no signed contract.
We're very close to signing a contract and ironing out the smaller points at this point in time.
Dornan was not made available to answer questions from reporters today, nor did he address the opposition's questions about the S&P Global report. Opposition health critic Bill Hogan says any problems with eVisit NB can be repaired, including noted warnings that eVisit NB has breached the province's Official Languages Act.
The complaint that came out from the Language Commissioner, somebody had to wait too long. Like, really? That's a serious complaint? Like, eVisit works really well. Why not just keep it?
Green Party leader David Kuhn says all virtual health care should be based in New Brunswick.
And in fact, we should be providing it publicly through our regional health authorities. Vitality has offered to do that.
The provincial government says it made the decision to move to a new virtual health care provider following a competitive request for proposals process. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
Now to a new push to untangle one of the most congested road networks in Nova Scotia. The province and HRM are teaming up in a major review of how people actually move through the peninsula. They're looking for solutions that actually work. CTV's Hafsa Arif has details.
It's not rush hour, but it doesn't take long to see the pressure points. Congestion across Halifax's core is pushing leaders to take a closer look.
So we want to understand the flow of traffic as it is today through all modes, and what can make that better for all modes of traffic.
That includes transit, cyclists, pedestrians, and drivers. Everything from signal timing to dedicated lanes, even how streets themselves are designed.
One of the key priorities coming out of the regional transportation plan, and we feel that SEMA is a great team that will help us through this. So we're excited to hit the ground running and see the results over the next 12 months.
But some changes are already being felt. Since bridge tolls were removed, traffic heading on and off the peninsula has climbed by as much as 10%.
It is kind of ironic that you have allowed more traffic onto the peninsula by opening up the bridges, and now you're going to commission a study to say, how do we reduce the traffic?
The province argues removing tolls aren't the problem.
Population has grown significantly. More people are traveling, so post-COVID, people are heading back to the office.
Which the Spring Garden Business Commission says is adding to the strain.
An employee anywhere coming downtown to work and is already paying for parking is not going out to eat 5 days a week. If they were back to the 3 days a week, you can guarantee at least one of those 3 days they're going to be out shopping and spending.
Decision makers say once the study is complete, public input will be key, so drivers, transit users, and businesses will have a chance to weigh in. Hafsa Arif, CTV News, Halifax.
Okay, good as time as any to check in with meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell over there on the CTV Atlantic Weather Center. And as I mentioned on 5 tonight, I just found the wind kind of cold today.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing about today, you know, there's that popular Canadian saying when it comes to weather, if you don't like it, just wait 5 minutes.
Sure.
It was exactly like that. That was the type of day we had here in the Maritimes today, because at times, depending on when you stepped out your door, you could have stepped out into a flurry or even a brief snow squall. And at other times, it was sunny, although as Bruce mentioned, the wind was blustery throughout the day. Now, in behind those flurries, and they're coming to an end right now in eastern areas of Nova Scotia, we're going to have some relatively clear conditions for the first part of tonight, or at least for the evening hours. So here's a couple things you can see in the evening sky, especially after sunset, of course. It's the first quarter moon. It'll be 48% illuminated this evening. You should be able to see it now, but it'll be above the southern horizon throughout the evening hours. After sunset, though, you should be able to spot the planet Jupiter just to the left of the moon. And if you're quick and you've got a good view of the western horizon, you might even be able to spot the planet Venus setting just after the sun. The aurora is unlikely to be observed tonight. There will be a good pass from the International Space Station beginning at around 8:43 p.m. It's about a 5-minute long pass, and it'll be moving from the northwest to the southeast and rising fairly high into the sky as well. So that should be a good one to catch. So again, that's about 8:43 p.m. in the Maritimes. Let's take a look, though, at how conditions are going to be changing during the overnight into tomorrow. So like I mentioned, for the first part of tonight, generally clear conditions around the region. It's going to be a colder night. During the overnight, we will see some cloud cover increase from the west. And that cloud cover will be moving in ahead of a developing low pressure system. It's making its way through southern Ontario, southern Quebec, and then into New Brunswick for tomorrow. And as you can see right now, showing up in areas of Ontario, there is a mix of snow and rain with this one. We are expecting a mix of snow and rain for the Maritimes on Thursday, though in most cases, the transition from snow to rain should take place fairly quickly. I will talk more about that in detail, though, Bruce, when I'm back just a little bit later on.
Yeah, 15 or 20 minutes or so. Thank you, my friend. Well, a close call between a school bus and a dump truck in Nova Scotia's Annapolis Valley this morning. This one happened just before 8:30 a.m. on Harrington Road in Coldbrook. Police say the bus, which did have students on board, was traveling east when it collided with the dump truck on the road. Fortunately, there were no injuries. The crash is under investigation, but it's worth noting it was snowing at the time. Now to an unusual order from the province of New Brunswick to scores of anglers. The next time they reel in a fish that's considered invasive, they're being told to kill it rather than throw it back in the water. The catch is the list varies depending on where you're actually doing the fishing. Here's CTV's Avery McCrae.
It won't be long before the St. John River is filled with boats of anglers taking advantage of the province's rich fishing grounds. And when they do, there are some new rules to know.
We do have to be very cautious about limiting the spread of invasive fish species.
The province is now requiring all anglers to keep and kill 5 invasive fish species upon capture. The fish are black crappie, chain pickerel, both large and smallmouth bass, as well as muskellunge or muskies. But it's important to note, outside of the black crappie, these fish are not deemed invasive province-wide.
If everyone's under the impression that all smallmouth bass in the lower Woolastook-St. John River watershed are intended for retaining and killing, we're going to do some really big damage to our recreational fisheries. These are really important for our economic tourism and for the overall ecological value of the lower Woolastook.
The Restigouche, Chaleur, Miramichi, and Southeast recreational fishery areas see all 5 fish as invasive to their waters, while pickerel, largemouth, and muskies are deemed invasive in the inner Bay of Fundy. Largemouth bass are also to be caught and killed in the upper St. John River.
A change like this is only effective if people know about it.
Neville Crabb of the Atlantic Salmon Federation says people who fish have certain routines, and without more awareness, they may not know the changes.
I think it's important for the province to consider posting signage at areas like boat launches, popular fishing spots, and other places to spread the message far and wide, because people only know what they know.
Anglers who catch an invasive fish are asked to document the capture, then quickly and humanely euthanize it. As for what to do with the dead fish, anglers can either keep it to eat for themselves, or if it's frozen, they can bring it to their local DNR office. Avery McCrae, CTV News, St. John.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Fans will tell you the Moncton Wildcats followed up last year's championship run with another extremely successful regular season. Their first hurdle on making it back to junior hockey's national championships are their rivals just down the road. CTV's Derek Haggett has a playoff preview for us tonight.
Mercier, qui compte, et ça réduit l'écart.
Okay, a few technical problems with that story. We will have it for you before the end of tonight's broadcast. Step aside for our first break. Still to come, cold again with some cloud moving in overnight. Kalen will return with his full forecast. Coming up next, the latest from the Middle East.
Here in Washington, the president is adamant that Iran wants to make a deal to end this war. But what we're learning today about Iran's alleged response to a U.S. 15-point peace plan. I'm Olivia Rubin with the latest coming up.
We continue to learn more details about the final moments before Sunday's deadly runway collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Federal officials say both technology issues and staffing problems may have contributed to the catastrophic accident involving an Air Canada plane. NBC's Sam Brock is at LaGuardia with the latest.
There is no clear timeline for when that Air Canada Express jet that is currently sitting on its tail over my shoulder on the tarmac with just swarms of crews, 25 plus NTSB specialists on the ground sifting through debris, when that's all going to get cleared up. We know that the FAA said that by Friday, this runway should be reopened, but clearly there's lots left in this investigation. We say that as the NTSB held an eye-opening briefing yesterday, essentially identifying 2 critical errors, at least in the early going, that are being probed. One of them has to do with technology, and specifically the ground movement that is detected through both satellite and radar that is communicated to the air traffic control tower when it appears that an incursion is possible. And what Jennifer Hamady said is that this technology, ASDX, did not send an alert to the air traffic control as it was intended to when the fire truck and the plane came within close proximity. That is something that is being investigated today. She also mentioned the fact that there were confirmed 2 controllers in the tower the night that it all happened. She has not identified, at least even if the NTSB knows, who was responsible for giving the clearance to the truck, which one of the 2 it is. One of them was supposed to be interviewed yesterday afternoon. The second still needs to be, at least that's the latest understanding that we have. Waiting for more information on that. But what Hamady's point was, big picture, is that it's standard operating procedure, at least right now, at airports across the country to have only 2 controllers in the tower in those overnight hours, simply because there is less volume. But it does raise questions about whether that's safe For instance, we spoke with a former controller who said that leaves you no margin for error because especially when there's fatigue, coffee breaks that need to be taken, you may be down to one person, and catastrophe can happen if there is a single mistake. So all of this is part of a broader sweeping investigation that is only in its early stages right now. At LaGuardia Airport, Sam Brock, NBC News.
Now to the war in Iran. The United States looking for an agreement to end the conflict, sending Iran a 15-point peace plan. Iranian state media, though, reporting the country rejected that proposal, issuing its own demands. ABC's Olivia Rubin has the details.
Iran proving today it still has military firepower. Israel says an Iranian ballistic missile landed near a major power plant, one of 5 strikes in Israel today. Another Iranian missile blowing up near an airport in Kuwait. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain also targeted today by Iranian missiles and drones. Iranian state media today reporting Iran rejected America's 15-point peace plan.
What I will tell you is these talks are ongoing. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details that have been exchanged between the United States and Iran at this time.
Iran still insists no negotiations are going on at all, but Iranian state media says it does have its own list of demands, including a halt to the assassinations and control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran's proposing things that the United States is never going to accept. We're not going to remove ourselves from the bases in the Middle East. We're not going to pay the Iranians reparations for this air war. It's just not going to happen.
And sources say the Pentagon is preparing to deploy as many as 1,500 soldiers from the elite 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. Now, the president has said he does not plan to put U.S. boots on the ground, but those soldiers are trained to parachute behind enemy lines. Olivia Rubin, ABC News, Washington.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. Still to come, a mix of snow turning to rain for the Maritimes tomorrow. Kaylin will be back with all those details when CTV News at 6 continues. Kind of a nice live look here at St. John, hey? 627 and 2 degrees right now in the port city. Notice a decided lack of snow around there, just a little bit around Halifax, but not much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, weather, as we've been talking about throughout the night, certainly at times was snowy, but it was for short periods of time, and then the sun came out in behind it, so that took care, in a lot of cases, what snow did fall. We've been talking about some spring snow so far this year in the Maritimes.
And we've been having it.
That's right, but we're not alone. So let's take a look at weather conditions across the country. We'll talk about some spring snow in other parts of Canada.
Well, see, that's a refreshing change.
Yes, that's right. So Calgary, 16 centimeters of snow today. And snowfall warnings continue into the foothills of the Rocky Mountains into the south of Alberta. Additionally, there's a snowfall warning out for parts of Saskatchewan into Manitoba, basically beginning around the Melfort area in Saskatchewan and extending towards the Dauphin Lake area in Manitoba, where some snowfall amounts could approach 15 to 20 centimeters. You can see snow is being reported right now at Saskatoon, sitting at -14. Winnipeg right now at -5. Moving off towards the east, it is milder in the southwest of Ontario. Winds are right now sitting at 12 degrees. It cools for Ottawa. Temperature sitting at 1, 0 at Montreal. Here in the Maritimes, we've got 2 at Fredericton and Charlottetown, 4 at Halifax, and right now at St. John's, it's a mix of sun and cloud, and the temperature sitting at 0. Taking a look at our forecast timeline for cloud cover and precipitation. Once these flurries come to an end in eastern areas of Nova Scotia, the first part of tonight is fairly clear and chilly. It does get colder overnight, and cloud cover increases from the west. And that is ahead of some snow and some rain in the forecast for us tomorrow. Now, this starts in western parts of the Maritimes very early Thursday morning. It's a pretty fast-moving weather system, so the mixture of snow and rain will fill in across the region west to east as we move from the morning and towards the early afternoon. For most of the region, the transition from snow over to rain will take place fairly quickly, and that will limit the overall potential for snow to add up on the ground. In a lot of cases, it'll be trace, maybe up to around a few centimeters. It is possible that some northern areas of New Brunswick pick up a little bit more snow than that, and same thing goes up in the Cape Breton Highlands. Those two parts of the Maritimes could see maybe 5 to 10 centimeters of wet snow collect. Other areas you can see, again, trace, maybe up to around a few centimeters. Now, as far as the rain goes for this weather system, it'll generally be about 5 to 15 millimeters through Thursday and Thursday night into Friday morning for areas of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. The rain, though, expected to be a little bit steadier, even heavy at times for parts of Nova Scotia, and that'll bring rainfall totals for that province up into the range of 15 to 30 millimeters, possibly with some pockets as high as 30 to 40 millimeters for the Atlantic coastal counties. I wouldn't expect big issues with that type of rain. However, if you're out driving and that rain's coming down and there's some ponding water in the roads, you of course want to be careful about some hydroplaning conditions. Low temperatures in the forecast for tonight for the Maritimes will be mostly falling below the freezing mark. In the southwest of Nova Scotia, most lows between -3 and 0. In the southwest of New Brunswick between -2 and -6. Other parts of the Maritimes tonight with a lot of lows between -7 and -10, and a few in the north of New Brunswick down to around -12. Highs in the north of New Brunswick for tomorrow between 0 and 6 degrees, and down through central and southern parts of the province, most of the high temperatures between 4 and 9 degrees, mildest in the southwest, especially around St. Stephen. Prince Edward Island tomorrow with high temperatures between 2 and 5 degrees. In eastern areas of Nova Scotia, most of the high temperatures will be around the low to mid single digits. For northern and central parts of the province, a lot of high temperatures tomorrow between 4 and 6. And in the southwest of Nova Scotia, high temperatures between about 6 and 8 degrees. Taking a look at the extended forecast for New Brunswick, it's a mix of sun and cloud on Friday, but temperatures turn cold Friday night into the start of the weekend on Saturday. There'll be a chance of flurries on Sunday, with some further flurries expected by late in the day on Monday. It's followed by a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday of next week, and a chance of flurries on Wednesday. And for Nova Scotia in the forecast, the rain clears out on Friday, but in behind it, it's replaced by a cold northwest wind. That really brings the temperatures down for the start of the weekend. There'll be some isolated flurries around on Sunday. Monday night could see some more flurries for the province. It's followed by a mix of sun and cloud on Tuesday and a chance of flurries on Wednesday of next week. And for Prince Edward Island in the forecast, the weather system coming through on Thursday, snow turning over to rain, clears as maybe some showers and flurries very early Friday morning. Temperatures turn cold in behind it, though, for the start of the weekend. Chance of flurries on Sunday as well as on Monday night, and a continuing chance of some flurries with some chilly temperatures on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Bruce.
All right, thank you, sir. Wake up weather still to come before the end of the broadcast. Coming up next, a conversation with the mayor of Halifax about the difficult budget process this year and how much more taxpayers will be paying. Stay with us.
Okay, so coming up on the show tomorrow, we'll have another chance to win a $100 gas card at 7:30 with the What the Hell question of the day.
Plus, we'll have some more info on how you could win $1,000 cash. Good luck.
So in a little less than a week, Halifax Regional Council will vote to finalize its budget, the end of what has been a lengthy and sometimes contentious process. Indeed, the mayor has repeatedly found himself on kind of the losing end of a number of high-profile debates over certain municipal programs and services. The problem, of course, is money. Leave everything as it was, and property taxes would go up nearly 11%, unpalatable for a lot of taxpayers. Joining us tonight to discuss what is at stake and what's happening, we are happy to welcome the Mayor of Halifax, Andy Fillmore. Thanks so much for coming in tonight.
Great to be with you, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
How important is this budget in your mind?
I think this is one of the most difficult fiscal environments that the council at HRM has had to pass in perhaps a couple of decades. So this is an extremely important budget. We know that households are having a hard time meeting their financial commitments, putting food on the table. We've been sort of the triple hit of power rate increases, water rate increases, and now a substantial tax bill increase on top of all the other expenses. So it was really important to do everything we could to bring the cost of this budget down. And I'm not sure that we were entirely successful.
Yeah, well, I mean, staff had recommended, what, about 11% this year, and then it was staggered over another
we
year.
started our budget deliberations with a 10.5% increase to the average tax bill. 2 months later, after all that debate, we got it down to 9.5, but that percent increase to the average tax bill. But there was a lot of things were added to the bill, to the tax bill. I brought motion after motion to reduce costs. Other colleagues brought motion after motion to increase costs, and in the balance of all that, we're at 9.5%, and it worries me greatly.
You did, as you say, bring forward, you know, a number of motions, staff cuts. I think you mentioned staff salaries, reducing some of those. Those weren't necessarily received well, as you say, by a lot of your council colleagues. Are you worried then that we've just kind of kick this problem down the road?
I am. I think we need to be having a serious look at the amount of money we're spending on capital projects. We need to be taking a serious look at how we are managing the number of employees that we have at the city right now. Now, the conversation I was asking to have with my staffing motion was about how we could reduce staffing to some degree through things like attrition or retirements and that kind of thing.
Not layoffs.
Not layoffs, but unfortunately we weren't able to get to that conversation. I think that as we look around and see the federal government doing just that and the provincial government doing just that, provincial governments across the country, we're not exempt from that. We're going to have to face that conversation at some point.
You did face some criticism in the staffing front because you yourself, I think, had requested additional help or additional people in your office, and some said, well, hold on here.
Yeah, the mayor's office staffing levels had been static at 6 people since 2013. So that was when we were about 130,000 people fewer, about 1,000 employees fewer, different economic times, different expectations for communications and social media. Back then there was higher trust in government institutions. Now we have to work harder to stay in touch with people. So with a reorganization of the mayor's office for the first time in 13 years, the advice we got was that you should have an extra communications person, and so that's what we proposed.
You mentioned capital projects. Bike lanes, obviously, are the big thing. You know, that's what everybody always seems to come back to. Are you still convinced that some of the bike lane networks ought to be sort of, you know, downgraded, or that, or did council convince you that it's best to continue pumping money into these projects because a lot of it's already done?
Well, they didn't convince me that we need to continue with the gold-plated versions. And then the other thing is I don't need convincing that we do need to complete the network. I just don't think we can afford to do a gold-plated network. The highest standard that you'll see not too far from here on Almond Street, for example, that's as much as $4,500 per meter.
Per meter?
Per meter. And we can do something far less expensive in the $1,000 per meter, or even less, using very acceptable and safe means. So that's really what I would like to do, and I think I'm gonna have to keep on trying to make that change.
There have been other sort of less contentious discussions around, you know, increasing parking rates. There's going to be Saturday parking now, possible reduction in green bin collection. Have any of those been approved yet?
So nothing is formally approved until the council vote on March 31st. So that'll be the final adoption. We did not end up changing any of the green bin collection. We did that last year, and so nothing changes this year. We did add some modest charges for parking on Saturday, but that includes the first hour free, and that brings us into line with other Canadian cities. The big things that really drove the budget this year and that increase were proceeding with projects like the Halifax Forum, which is now a $126 million project for 2 sheets of ice and some community space. Very overpriced for that. And the council voted to advance the purchase of 10 buses ahead of the planned schedule, which meant that those 10 buses at over $1 million each had to go on the tax rate this year. Those 2 things alone really kept us from bringing that 9.5% increase down into the low or mid-single digits where I wanted to bring it.
You mentioned this earlier, I think, when we first started, about the unexpected costs that not only the ratepayers are facing, power rates and water rates, and you know, what happens to the city's budget, you know, if well, diesel's now $2.40 a liter. So is that factored into the budget?
There are some contingencies that departments always carry. I don't think anyone was expecting to see $2 a liter diesel.
Sure.
But we also can take some solace that this is will be temporary, and those prices will stabilize at some point in the future. So that's what budgets are like, though. There's always the unexpected thing that can happen, and you have to be able to plan and adapt accordingly. And if that means going back to the council mid-year to make some adjustments, then that's always a possibility too.
What are you hearing from residents as this debate finally wears down?
Yeah, so we concluded the debate around the council table about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, and since then I've been touring the municipality, all points. I've been to Hubbard's and to Eastern Shore and to Sackville and to Waverley, visiting Legions and community halls, attending community suppers, and hearing from people in every possible way that I can. And I have to say the news is not great. People are not happy with the budget.
They're disappointed, but
disappointed with a 9.5% increase and the predicted increases over the subsequent years, which are going to compound to about somewhere in the ballpark of a 50% increase on the tax bill after about 4 years. So people are understandably displeased with where we are.
Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Bruce. We'll look forward to the next time.
Andy Fillmore, of course, the Mayor of Halifax, joining us tonight 6 days ahead of the city's final budget vote. The spending plan has been controversial this year, ultimately going to turn into about 9.5% increase for Haligonians. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In the Lifeline tonight, it's been called mom brain, a congestive change that happens after a woman gives birth. Turns out that the mom brain can actually be a superpower. CTV's Brianne Foley has more.
After giving birth, having symptoms like forgetfulness can be a struggle, but one expert says this postpartum period isn't all bad. Becoming a parent means more responsibility with less sleep. And it can take time for your brain to adjust to juggling new challenges, like time management, mental fog, and reduced focus, all while functioning through severe sleep deprivation and hormonal shifts. Ohio University psychiatrist Tamara Gurr says getting through mom brain starts with understanding it.
It's actually just a really intentional growth in certain parts of your brain and a restructuring. And so just like when your house gets renovated, you have to put up with some dust and bother, but it's for long-term good.
Gurr says taking care of you needs to be top of mind. That means prioritizing sleep when it's possible, eating healthy, exercising, and going outside for fresh air and sunlight. It's not just vaccines. Some parents are refusing other routine preventative care for newborns. A recent study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that refusals of the vitamin K shots rose steeply between 2017 and 2024. Those shots can prevent potentially deadly bleeding. A subsequent research review found that U.S. parents who declined vitamin K shots were 90 times more likely to also refuse the hepatitis B vaccine and an eye ointment that can prevent potentially blinding infections. For health and medical news, I'm Brianne Foley with The Lifeline.
Now to a landmark verdict against Facebook and Instagram and the parent company Meta. They have been ordered to pay millions of dollars after a jury found its social media platforms are harmful to children's mental health. The judgment is just the first in a wave of litigation that could lead to major changes in the industry. ABC's Jacqueline Lee has the details.
A jury today finding social media platforms Meta and YouTube liable for causing harm to children using their platforms. The landmark Los Angeles trial garnered national attention. The plaintiff in the case, a 20-year-old woman identified as Kaylee, testified, describing what she calls addiction to social media that began after she started watching YouTube when she was 6 years old, telling jurors she now suffers from anxiety, depression, and body dysmorphia. Because I spent all my time on my phone, it affected how I saw myself, Kaylee told jurors. Her testimony last month came 1 week after Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, spent nearly 8 hours on the stand defending accusations Meta set goals to increase the time users spent on the apps. Zuckerberg testifying, "I think I've been clear that we used to have goals on this, and then we changed that." During his testimony, Zuckerberg defending Instagram's account settings aimed at protecting teens on the platform. At the start of the trial, a Meta spokesperson telling ABC News in a statement that the company strongly disagrees with the allegations. Google, the parent company of YouTube, saying the allegations are simply not true and that they have provided parents robust controls on the platform. And this is just the first in what is likely to be a wave of litigation nationwide, with parents and online safety advocates demanding change.
These products were launched to us without guardrails, without education, without warning to any parents. They entered our homes quietly, catching families completely unprepared. We became the testing ground, and so did our children.
Social media companies TikTok and Snap were also named defendants in the lawsuit, but settled prior to trial. Jacqueline Lee, ABC News, Los Angeles.
With Aaron and Peter.
Win your share of $10,000 with Aaron and Peter's payroll.
Register now at move100halifax.ca and listen for your name starting at 8 a.m.
On the markets today, the Dow ended the day up 305 points and more on that landmark court case in the U.S. where Meta and YouTube have been found liable for damaging a young woman's mental health. B&M Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez has more.
The California jury found both companies knew their platforms were dangerous and failed to properly warn users of the risk. Meta and Alphabet, the parent company of YouTube, have been ordered to pay $3 million in damages, U.S. Both had fought the argument their platforms were addictive. The win is seen as monumental because it sets precedent for hundreds of other social media cases before the American courts. Here are the closing numbers for the day. Canadian dollar is up to 72.38. West Texas Intermediate is down over $2 to 90.32. Western Canadian Select is up over $3 to 76.21. And the TSX gained 441 points today. Those are your business headlines. I'm Morella Fernandez.
Thank you, Morella. Now we'll head outside to Kaylin on the weather deck. Has the wind died down any?
Yeah, it's easing up a little bit, and it'll continue to ease as we move through this evening and tonight. It's chilly out here, and once again, it's going to be colder for a late March night in the Maritime. So let's take a look at our view picture for tonight. This is a beautiful sunrise coming in from Dort's Cove in Guysborough County, Nova Scotia. This was sent in by Claire Mayette. I want to thank Claire very much for taking the time to send us in this beautiful photograph. And for Dort's Cove for tomorrow, it's a cloudier day and there's rain in the forecast. The rain should begin around the community by around noon, carries on through the afternoon into the evening with a final round of rain that comes in late Thursday night into Friday morning. Day planner for tomorrow, mixture of snow and rain making its way into western parts of the Maritimes, west of New Brunswick and the southwest of Nova Scotia. Now for southern New Brunswick and the southwest of Nova Scotia, the change from snow over to rain should happen fairly quickly as we make our way from the morning into the afternoon. Other parts of the Maritimes as well, seeing initially a little bit of snow turning over to rain. There may be some wet snowfall accumulation in some of the northernmost areas of New Brunswick as well as up into the Cape Breton Highlands. A lot of high temperatures tomorrow for the Maritimes, up to around the mid to high single digits by late in the day. Bruce.
Be a nice change to swap out the umbrella for the snow boots, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure. All right, thank you, my friend. Finally, tonight, the first hurdle the Moncton Wildcats face to make it back to the Junior Hockey National Championships are their rivals just down the road. CTV's Derek Haggett has this playoff preview for us tonight.
The Battle of New Brunswick starts this weekend, but the regular season standings say it may not be a fair fight.
Smith in, waits, shoots, scores, Gabe Smith.
For the second straight year, the Moncton Wildcats finished first overall in the Quebec League. They're currently second in the Canadian Hockey League rankings and finished a whopping 53 points ahead of the St. John Sea Dogs in the standings. For the head coach, all that means now is an extra home game in the series.
They have an exciting young team. They've done a great job with their drafting. They got a lot of talent, and we've had some great games. They're offensively, they're a treat to watch.
They're going to be prepared, and this is a great opening round series for the Moncton Wildcats to really dig in.
Out in front, there's Sophie scores! The Wildcats made it all the way to the Memorial Cup last year, but came up short. This year, instead of rebuilding, they retooled and added new talent, including several American free agents.
You bring 18 new players in. Sometimes it's going to take a while to, form, first of all, the brotherhood off the ice that leads to the on-ice performance. And this group has blended in really, really well.
Team speed is a tremendous asset for the Moncton Wildcats, and that's how they're going to have success here in the playoffs if they can wear down their opposition by using their speed.
Eagles thinks this year's group is more than capable of making it back to the Memorial Cup. Games 1 and 2 of the best-of-7 series will go here at the Avenir Center Friday and Saturday night. The series then shifts to St. John for games 3 and 4 Tuesday and Wednesday. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
Thank you, Derek. That is the program for this Wednesday night. The rebroadcast begins in just a moment on CTV2 and, of course, CTVNewsAtlantic.ca updates right around the clock. I'm Bruce Frisco in for Todd Battis. I'll be back with your next news at 11:30 tonight. Thank you for watching this one. Have a good evening. We'll see you again soon.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.